Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is János Daskal and I am the National Contact Point for Digital Europe program here in Hungary. This training is a part of the DEP for All project. This is already session 5. I hope there are many of you who took part in some of the previous sessions already. Today's topic is the deep dive into the DEP specific objective number 5, which is deployment and best use of technologies. And today's structure will look like this. So after this very short introduction, I will show you the housekeeping rules for today. And then comes the most important section of the training is the professional part. The first part is about the strategy and policy background, because DEP calls for proposals are not coming out of nowhere. So strategy and policy background, related terminology, the most important related parts and novelties from the Digital Europe program work program are very, very important. So this is what Oke Scholten, the DEP NCP from the Netherlands, will talk about. This will be the first part. And then moving from the more general to the more specific part, Leonardo Tonetto, also DEP NCP from Luxembourg, will present the related calls for proposals, which are open now. So applications to them can be developed and submitted until this, September. So this is why it is very, very important. And then, of course, we will finish with a short Q&A session and a very quick wrap up. So, and now before we dive into today's content, the professional part, so that the session will be as efficient as possible, let's jump to a short list of housekeeping rules. So if you, okay. First of all, please note that this training is being recorded. It is very important both for us and for you as well, because both the recording and the presentation slides will be shared with you. So if you are afraid that you miss anything, don't be, because we will share all the information with you. This is why this training is being recorded. As we have quite a large group of people here, fortunately, to avoid the background noise, we have to keep your mics muted throughout the session. If you have anything important to say, just raise your hands. We will see it and we will give you the word. So no problem with this. If you have questions, please write them to the chat or the Q&A channel. So we will try to address some of the questions during or at the end of the sessions. But if there are questions that are not answered or cannot be answered during the session, we will take care of them, and we'll take care of them in writing and send you the answers in the follow-up letter. And finally, of course, we will not have neither time nor information to discuss everything in very detail. So if you are looking for more detailed or personalized guidance, we encourage you to get in touch with your Digital Europe program national contact points in all the countries, who will be happy to assist you further. So thanks in advance for your kind cooperation. And now let's begin. So the floor is yours, okay? The first session.
Well, thank you, János, and welcome everybody. So let's dive into this strategies, policies, novelties about SO5. My name is Oke Scholten. I'm a national contact point from the Netherlands. I work already a couple of years, first as a national contact point for Horizon and then Digital Europe. And most of the questions we get about the main work program, normally from our perspective, but some national contact points also give cyber advice as well, because you have two work programs, cyber and main work program, and the EDI work program on the side. But basically, most of the questions we get about skills and AI. But now we're going to talk about SO5, which is about the best use of technology. So later I will give the whole name of it. And let's look at it more from a wider perspective, and start with the digital decade. So maybe it's in the previous talks you talked about it as well, but for the new people it's nice to have a little recap here. So Digital Decade Goals is about the Digital Decade is like the European program about for skills, businesses, infrastructure. And on the left, we have public services. And this SO5 is specifically focused on these public services, for example, on the digital identity wallet and these kind of things. It is nice to see here on the left, we see the Digital Decade pyramid, where we start with principles. We start with principles and we have things like sustainability, participation, choice. These kind of principles are reflected on the top layer, and they boil down to rules. These rules, so we have AI rules, we have data rules, and also eIDAS and other legislation and rules that we have. And the bottom layer is about cutting edge technology, and most of these technologies landed, so to say, within Digital Europe. And the technologies related to government implementation of this Digital Decade mostly landed within Digital Europe. And on the right, you see there the orange one, which I, as a Dutch person, like very much. We see the deployment and best use of digital capacities and interoperability. It's a whole word. So we see it on we see the orange one, and there's actually quite some money going towards that. What kind of projects are we talking about? Funding rates are between 50% and 100%. Later, Leonardo Tonetto and I will be talking about different kind of grants. Within SO5, we see specifically simple grants, SME support grants, and procurement grants, ranging from different funding percentages. So the procurement grants are things that the government procures, and in this case, the European Commission procures for 100% funding, mostly from commercial parties. And the 50% grants are like international consortia, and also the governments can participate in those kind of consortia as well. So it's sometimes national co-funding is involved. In the Netherlands, for example, we have some kind of national co-funding. The Danes have it as well, the Danes, and it's public-private cooperation, which you know already, of course. There's a coordinator who holds the pen, who makes a proposal. And the topics are the calls. The call topics are focused on specific topics, and there's strong competition, so I have to write strong proposals. It depends a little bit here for this best use kind of topics, the SO5. How do you say this? The competition depends a little bit on the circumstance, and I will explain a little bit more about that later. So, but still we are talking about top-down topics, and the content is defined in the topic text, which you have to read very carefully, as always, and which defines very much what you have to do within your project. So this is what we are talking about, the quite big chunk, and we're looking at the main and the cyber work program in the graph, so to be full information for you. So basically, I looked at different parts. The SO5 part is quite full of different kind of work strands. We have a work strand more focusing on deployment of public services. So we're talking about interoperability between governments and EID, these kind of things. Justice and consumers. We have a health work strand, and then we have a democracy work strand. So fake news and these kind of things. And we have a work strand, rest of the multi-country projects. More or less, these are the biggest ones that I could decipher, and there might be several smaller topics within there. And I try to give you a kind of an overview here of these different work strands and what is in play. And then Leonardo will later talk about some specific call topics that open soon, which are specific ones, which are I think the simple and the SME support. So different categories of grants that he will present about. And here's the whole overview of all the call topics that will be opening or are open or have opened the in the coming years, coming 2 years. So first of all, deployment of public services. What are we talking about here? On the right, you see some examples of call topics. So European Digital Identity and Trust Ecosystem. So this is the wallet. So on the left, you see the first one. You see the EU Digital Identity Framework, EIDAS, which is the legislation which lays the foundation for trusted cross-border digital identity systems, such as the European Digital Identity Wallet. Then we have Interoperable Europe that supports the operational interoperability across public administrations, and we see an older rule legislations like the Single Digital Gateway, which was about cross-border public services via the once-only technical system. So these are the kinds of regulations that are in place here. And later I'm going to talk about the digital identity and trust ecosystem, Interoperable Europe policy support. And we see on the right, we see the MCP that I will explain in the next slide of connected public administrations. It's also about interoperability. Interoperability, so maybe it's nice to talk about some terminology here. So I mentioned the wallets. What is a wallet? A wallet is a mobile app for people and businesses to identify themselves and to share digital credentials and data. Next term would be the commons, or for example, open source data, or this kind of terminology I want to introduce here as well. That we're talking about for commons, for example, talking about digital resources that can be reused for collaboration. And we see that in some parts within this SO5 topics, we see these kinds of technologies being used. Data spaces, federated data ecosystems that enable trustworthy and sovereign interoperable data sharing. So these are more the general way of sharing data. And then we have a multi-country project that is about three countries, more than 3 countries, 3 or more countries for large scale deployment, especially defined within the digital decade, so the broader program. And within and one example of such an MCP multi-country project is an EDIC. And this is a dedicated legal structure for the joint implementation of multi-country projects, enabling long-term collaboration. So building digital infrastructures, building it, making a roadmap, and working together of making these kind of infrastructures. So first of all, digital identity framework, EIDAS, and some examples for this. So basically what we see here is a big government involvement here. For example, in the potential on the right, Potential, which is a French-German consortium, which it's coming to the end, and it was an old Digital Europe consortium, as I remember it. Big project with a lot of different stakeholders involved, and we have the EWC and the DC4EU. So these by bigger projects, and then there's a smaller one, all focusing on different aspects of a wallet, of a digital identity wallet, and the new projects that are now being started, so the grants are being signed at the moment, are building on the results of these projects, and that's good to know. So at least these are the simple projects that are there. Which means in practice that governments work together within these consortia. Also, there are procurement topics within Digital Europe as well, where companies and parties outside the government can build solutions for example, for a digital identity framework. But it's nice to know that these are the kind of consortia that are active. So building cross-border and interoperable digital identity for trust and security and interoperability. Also nice to mention is that in a way these kind of data spaces that I mentioned overlap in some way with wallet kind of solutions. So for some examples, you would like to use a wallet. For some examples, you would like to use more personal protected, and you would like to add more personal protection in there. For example, in the agri data space EDIC that is on the list, an SO2 actually. So if you want to read more about it or learn more about this previous talk, and a regulatory compliance use cases is also the wallet is being mentioned over there, so that in a way you have your data being stored and you take your AI, for example, towards the data that is personalized and that is secure, accessible for some specific purposes that are being defined in these kinds of projects. Interoperable Europe. So on the right, we see Digital Europe for All, which was an old Horizon Europe project. So Horizon Europe is more about research. Digital Europe is more about scaling up these kind of projects. But the previous was based on the single digital gateway, studying abroad. So this was about interoperability, and this kind of new projects within Digital Europe could like build on, for example, a DE4A or Commons kind of initiatives, where the Commons initiative is more focused on open source software interoperability, open source data exchange. These kind of techniques are being developed there. So that is more the point I wanted to make, is that you could build your project upon the results that are already being made, for example, within Horizon as well. So this interoperability here within Digital Europe is about sharing data for public administrations, as said before, open source tools, these kind of things, and to enable administrative cooperation. And that is an important point to emphasize here. For example, also the justice and consumers part is also about cross-border access, data exchange, evidence sharing, and efficiency, trust, and cooperations between justice and criminal procedures, and also enabled by some Digital Europe projects, which are mentioned here on the right above. So like the joint initiative, investigation teams, collaborations, and on the right you see Empower, which had several smaller projects of budgets to 2.3 million around this number, which enabled an AI-powered investigative tools for law enforcement agencies. So you can build on these kind of solutions as well here. If I'm correct, most of the core topics here are procurement topics. So later more on procurement. Then another REST group. Here there are some digital health and specifically focused on cybersecurity. So healthcare topics landed, so to say it in a governmental way, within Digital Europe. In SO2, where cloud AI and are based, there you can find some data space and European health data space related topics. And here you also have some topics as well, focusing on the EEHRXF and the Cybersecurity Support Center for Healthcare. So basically, on the right, we see a previous proposal, which is focused on the demonstrations of these EAHRF operational environments in operational environments, and there are some other proposals that, or some other projects that where people got experience with the NIS2 and these other cybersecurity regulations. So we're talking about, that's the point I wanted to make here. So this regulation about the European health data space and a cybersecurity strategy like the NIS2, these kind of regulations. Just to sketch a little bit, which might be interesting for some people here, but not for the whole group. So we have an EHDS, which is European Health Data Space, which is more the legal framework. These EEHRXF, and I'm not gonna say it anymore. It's about technical. It's about the technical format for interoperable health data, and then we have some other parts within Digital Europe that support genomics and cancer data spaces coordinated to the edX, what we know already, which was for this infrastructures that we talked about for multi-country projects. So I hope you're all still there. So now we're going to the part that Leo is going to talk about later, Leonardo. So we're talking about confidence in the digital transformation, which is a very important one. It's about fake news and European ID to tackle these kind of problems. It's also about, so the first one is about the European Democracy Action Plan to protect the democratic process. And within Digital Europe, you can find, for example, the ETMO. In the Netherlands, we have the BNETMO, the Benelux ETMO. And there's also mention of a European Democracy Shield, as SOAC, to coordinate the efforts. So they're all, it's nice to mention here that there are all these international projects being developed where standards are being used. So that's maybe a good message also for this group. There, for example, in the Netherlands, you also have Dutch projects focusing on fake news, and it's nice in a way to link these European efforts with efforts in your own country, for example, on fake news. And then there's a safe, age-appropriate online environment. So, for example, better internet for kids and safer internet centers, which Leonardo will be talking about as well, which are like, for example, the wallet proposals are focused on national governments and networks that are shaping that already. So it's nice. It's important if you want to work in these kind of projects to get to know the people of these safer internet centers. For example, I understand they work very closely together within this network, and I guess for the Atmos you have the same kind of networks there. Then the last one, which formally falls under the multi-country project, which formally falls under the Digital Decade Program. So that's a little mention there of the Digital Decade Program. We're talking here about edX, just to be complete for you, infrastructure, as I mentioned before, and this one will link to existing edX, like the local digital twins, the commons edX, these kind of edX. What are edX? Again, interoperable infrastructure, collaborations where people build infrastructure themselves and make a roadmap for these infrastructures. And in a government perspective, it's nice to mention, for example, local digital twin, which is, as the name suggests, for local digital twins, simulations in the domain of for example, landscapes and this kind of smart city and these kind of simulations. Commons edX, which is about open source building blocks, for example, for a digital workplace. We have the impacts edX being formed at the moment, which is about Interoperable Europe Act, which was already mentioned, if you still remember it, a little bit in the previous slides. And we have the alt edX, which is more about the coordination of the coordination of the European efforts for foundational models and to form some kind of ChatGPT alternative within Europe. So it's important to know these kind of projects, and perhaps later there will be more on this. So last but not least, in in this perspective, it's nice to for the people from central governments and regional governments who are present here to know that there are, especially in this SO5, very strong links between the European on the left, which we saw with the principles and the regulations, and then we saw the techniques being developed, to your regional or national values, national policies, regional policies. And we would like to encourage you to co-fund, for example, specific projects, or to encourage procurements, or maybe know what is in the procurement, as I talked about earlier, and try to collaborate with these kind of projects. Look to seek which are the parties involved within this procurement, and try to work together with these kind of parties. So that is a tip. And then some financial technology that I promised, that was about procurement, simple grants, and SME support grants, for example. So most of the people, I guess, who are working on Digital Europe know a little bit about the right, so the grants. So that is about that is about the EU that co-funds a project. There's a grant agreement that you can find on the funding and tenders portal. And on the left, you see the procurement. That is more about purchasing products. That's about the Article 172 is being mentioned here. And the contracting authority is the EC over there, where the role of the EC for grants is more as a funder and evaluator. Consortia is one or more contractors, and where for grants you see multiple partner consortia. The flexibility is a little bit lower than for example for grants, where it's more flexible, and they look more at price, technical offer, whereas in the grants you look at relevance, impact, and implementation. So less flexibility, more strictness, and more results based. So some tips here. Where to find them in the funding and tenders portal, and on the TED, the TED. What's provided, terms of reference, draft contracts, and the submission guidelines, and strong proposals are clear on what, how, for how much, these kind of things, and it should highlight the team experience, project management, methodology, and a fixed budget. So be concise and concrete. So that's more practical kind of proposals. I thought it would be nice to mention here for this group. What is the difference a little bit between these grants and these procurements? So then last but not least, I think from my perspective, what can NCPs, like people like Janos, Leonardo, and I, what can we do to help you with this? Of course, we can connect to national experts concerned with the same with these EU projects, or maybe that are involved in national projects relating to this. Make this linking of national policy with EU policy standards, and maybe also look critical at your procurement proposals. From a critically reading perspective, I didn't see, to be honest, that many procurement proposals, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we most focus on the grants. So to be honest, I guess most of the national context points are not that experienced, but they can read critically at least, I imagine. So more information will be on the Commission websites, HDEA, thematic info sessions, newsletters. It's a little bit outside, especially for the procurement, is outside. For the other topics, it is within our scope. So that will be a nice bridge to what Leonardo is going to tell. And these are, I think, a little bit my takes on this. So I will stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for this thorough and excessive overview. So I just wondering if we have any questions related to this so far. Agi, could you check it? Could you see it? Whether we have any questions?
No, we do not have.
For the time being. Okay. Okay. If not, then now let's move on to Leo. As I mentioned, there are open calls for proposals on this topic. So these are what Leo is going to present. So Leo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Janos. Thank you, okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Leonardo. As Janos presented, I'm a national contact point here in Luxembourg for the Digital Year program. But just like okay, I also cover parts of Horizon Europe. And what I'm here to talk to you today, if you were here in the previous sessions, you might have seen me or seen my other colleagues presenting similarly. It's the currently open topics on the SO that we're talking about today, which is SO5. The main document where all of this information that I will present to you comes from is the call document. So when you receive the slides, this document on the screen is the link to the call document. Please read it carefully. All the information should be there, both from the scope perspective, so what the topic requires, but also elements of eligibility and so on that you will find at the later sections of the document. So please refer it always to the document. The document is always, let's say, your best source of information. But for us today, we're going to talk about the two topics currently open on SO5 on mass use that are the fact checkers. So Oki kind of already hinted on the two topics. So it's the fact checkers topic, so European Network for Fact Checkers, and the network of safer internet centers, so 6. Both topics have a deadline on the 2nd of September this year. The fact checkers topic is a grant for financial support, or if you're familiar already with it, the term of FSTP, so financial support to third parties. I'm going to explain with more details once we get to the topic, but it's essentially the Commission's way of giving the consortium money for a part of implementation, but the other part of the money needs to be used for other smaller projects that the consortium will manage and kind of do another open call for other smaller projects to do, say, the implementation or the deployment of, let's say, like the last mile, like the last pieces of the project. One grant is expected to be funded on this topic at a budget of 5 million euros. We'll talk about again when we get to the topic, what is the percentage of funding and so on. And the second topic of today is the network 6, so the network of safer internet centers. It's a simple topic, meaning it's funded at 50%. The total budget for the topic is 42 million euros, and they expect to fund 31 proposals, so 31 grants. So on the first topic, the fact checkers. As I said, it's a grant for funding support. That is FSTP, if you're already familiar, so financial support to third parties. The suggested duration or the expected duration for these topics is between 30 and 36 months, total budget of 5 million. And on the next slide, you will see the breakdown between the two parts. But what the Commission expects is that a minimum of 60% of the money given for this for the fund project to be used as FSTP. And let's say the smaller projects, so the cascading fund that will be given from there, needs to fund projects that range between 60,000 and 350,000 per project. The main objective you saw with the policy kind of introduction from Oke is to continue the work that EDMO has been doing, so the European Digital Media Observatory, inside each member state, right? So supporting EDMO while deepening language coverage and operational capacity. So of course, the EDMO is came from a previously funded project inside Digital Europe, but its scope right now is European. And what the Commission wants is that for every member state and associated country, ideally to have at least one of such fact-checking entity that would have like as many languages covered as possible. And the purpose of these is to fight disinformation online. The two main policies that drive all of this topic is the Digital Service Act and the Code of Conduct of Disinformation. And the expected stakeholders, that's one thing that is very clear in the topic, that at least one of the consortium members needs to be a certified fact-checking organization. That is, say, if you're already familiar with this, with the fact-checking organizations, there is one European and one international association that certifies organizations for being certified fact-checkers. So one of those, they have to be, if you read the topic text, you will see the link to these two organizations, and there you can see, you can verify that the organization you're including in your consortium. So it's not something that you nominate yourself, right? It's something that someone will check and certify you as, or certify that organization as a fact-checking organization. But beyond those, of course, the topic is still open for the civil society, news media, and academic institutions. So the topic requires, or the way they describe it, is two main sets of deliverables. One deliverable for the consortium themselves, that needs to use up to 40% of the budget. And it requires three main elements. So a repository for fact checks, that is basically a database with let's say API access and so on, that would allow for different fact-checking organizations to have access to, for example, articles that have been flagged as misinformation and so on, or approaches to detecting fact-check material. The second is a fact-checking protection scheme. That is a way of protecting fact-checking organizations against harassment, for instance. That could include everything from, let's say, digital protection all the way to civil protection. And the third is a fact-checking emergency response capacity. That is, of course, these fact-checking organizations are meant to be there operational, let's say, at a normal level, but at times of crisis, for example, when there is like a natural disaster or an important election happening, there could be like a flood, let's say, of disinformation on the internet, and these fact checkers need to be resilient to this type of surge in their operations. And then the other part of the project, where at least 60% of the budget needs to be used, are these cascading funds, so these smaller projects, where their budget needs to be between 60,000 and 350,000 per smaller funded project managed by the bigger consortium. And they're meant to develop, the purpose of redistributing this money is to allow for these smaller projects to focus on one specific task, or to focus on one specific objective, and deliver things such as support for coverage expansion and meeting certification requirements. So simplify and make it more straightforward, this certification process in Europe. Piloting of novel technologies such as LLM for fact-checking purposes, and the organization of conferences and outreach for communication to make the work that has been done by these fact-checking organizations more visible to the community. The topic also describes a few KPIs. If you are familiar with Horizon Europe, you might remember that typically this is not the case, right? Like a Horizon Europe topic rarely details what KPIs they want. It's up to the consortium to come up with them. But here in Digital Europe, when you read the topic text, you will see that the Commission already defines many of the KPIs or the metrics, let's say success metrics, that the proposal should contain. And these include language covered, as you saw at the beginning. This is one of the key things for these fact checkers, right? Is to broaden the coverage of languages in Europe covered by these fact checkers. Fact checkers to be published, so to see for this repository to be found, where the number of publishing material that has been fact checked. Trainings conducted, because obviously you need to build capacity, not just technical capacity, but also human capacity. You need to train people on what has been developed here. communication outreach, organization, so organizations linked to the repository. So which organizations from news media, for example, that are using these services, and articles fact-checked in the end. I think that's what I had for this topic. Yes, and then the next topic, which is a bigger topic, much bigger in scope and also much bigger in budget, is the network of 6. So network of safer internet centers. You saw already with the policy background from OCE that the goal here is to continue the support of the national safer internet centers for to help minors tackle online risks and become media literate, resilient, and digital citizens, ensuring that no child is left behind. Basically, what this does is, or what the Commission wants from these from H6, is protection of minors on the internet, either protecting how they use the internet or how any content that may contain minors is treated online. It's a simple grant, so funded at 50%. The expected duration for the funded projects here are of 36 months, and the overall budget for the entire topic is 42 million euros. And each project funded is expected to range, and here you see that the range is quite wide, it's quite broad, is between 300,000 and 3.7 million euros per project. The policies you kind of already saw again with OCE, but are these 3. So European Strategy for Better Internet for Kids, so the Digital Service Act, and the Digital Rights and Principles. The types of stakeholders are pretty much every type of organization, with ideally also a strong presence of public organizations, so public-private sectors, NGOs, and international organizations. The main policy you've seen with OCE is this BIK+. There's the internet, better internet for kids, that has, let's say, 3 main pillars. That is to ensure that no kid is left behind, that every child in Europe is protected, empowered, and respected online. And in the empowering pillar, so to speak, is where the 6 come in, and they have typically, or what the Commission expect each of these safer internet centers to have to implement, are a national awareness center, a helpline, a hotline, and a youth panel. On the next slide, I will briefly mention what these are. So the 3 main strands for each 6 is the raise awareness, right? So that is to raise awareness for about online opportunities and risks for those under 18. So basically tell any kid online about the risks of being online, but also the opportunities, what they can learn, what they can see, and what is out there for them. A helpline and a hotline. The Commission also makes it clear that these have to be, let's say, tasks in the proposal. So this has to be implemented, and budget has to be allocated for the deployment of these. Right. A helpline is a one-to-one type of service that needs to be offered either via phone or email or an online chat, using trained personnel, that they offer advice and support on issues related to children's use of digital technology and services. So that is raising awareness of what is right and what is wrong, and what could or could not be done online by kids or involving kids. And the last piece of it is the hotline, which is essentially a sort of emergency service that needs also to be operational for tackling child sexual abuse material according to national and legal environment. And what this hotline will essentially do is, whenever a material is found online, or somebody wants to make a report, for example, about some material that they find could be compromising minors, that someone, or say a legal entity, either like an internet service provider or a legal authority like a police, should take action based on that warning or on that report. And all of these, again, they have to be implemented in the project, And I think with the exception of the hotline, so I think the hotline, if I'm not mistaken, it's marked as not really optional, but if it's not implemented, if it's not developed, deployed in the project, like a strong justification needs to be put in place on why this is not there. But all the other ones, so the raise awareness, the helpline, but yeah, and the youth panel. So the youth panel are panels conducted once a year where the civil society, both kids and parents and carers for kids need to be brought in person or online for discussions on what are, let's say, common issues and common problems that either kids are finding online or these parents or caretakers could be of their concern. And that's what I had for these two topics. We're ready for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Leo. Any questions? So we are very well on time. So booked 1.5 hours for all the sessions, but we knew that they are not the same in size and in budget and in every aspect. So we knew that this session is much shorter than the others. For example, there were only 2 open calls compared to, as I remember, SO2, there was 5 regarding AI and other topics. So, but that might not be a problem in the middle of summer, but still, if you have questions, feel free, please.
Maybe I can add something as well.
Sure.
It's nice to mention that for example, for these kind of ETMO, SIG, and these kind of topics, I would like to reiterate that there's a very active network of people already working on it, and it's building on the experiences and on those projects. So at least if you consider writing proposals for them, first reach out to them before you start writing. Because it's good because it's mentioned in the call topics that you should reach out to these kind of organizations, and I think that's the first step to do with these kind of call topics, especially in SO5. Maybe in general as well. I think most of the call topics, for example, the wallet topics, interoperability topics, there's very much a blend between government, public organization collaborations. So I think it's a little less in the procurement topics that I was talking about, but a little bit more for the SME support, the simple grants that Leo was talking about. So okay. I throw something in the lake. I hope someone thinks like, okay, nice.
Right.
Okay, in the Q&A session, there are some questions.
Yes, we have.
Yes, Agi, please.
Okay, so first question, as a safer internet center SIC, when creating a budget, do we take into account the activities and their weight in their work packages, or is there another way? For example, the size of the center, the country from which the center is located, by number of inhabitants, etc.
Yeah, I can try to answer that. So that you would be on the size of the effort, indeed. So it would be sort of like the first part of your question. The option will be that. So based on how many people will be, say, required, so to speak, to deploy this technology, to have it operational. But obviously that will, in some sense, shape or form, also scale with the number of requests that you expect to answer. Then that is likely to be a function of the size of the country. So it might even be a mix of both, right? But the cost is how much effort that you would require to deploy that within the work package.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Next question, how to find the partners into consortium to these types of projects?
Shall I start answering, and then Leo can specify it for the two call topics? So it depends a little bit on from my perspective, because I was talking about the broad range. So for example, there are a whole groups of people, for example, talking about wallets and there. So go to the dedicated websites and to the events. specifically on these kinds of topics. So there you can find partners, and there you can find collaboration partners, and it depends also a little bit on the specific call topics, because within the wallets, for example, again, you have you have simple topics where governments are involved, and you have procurements where governments are not involved. So you see a little bit a different way of working of these kind of consortia as well. But in any way, go to these groups, and then for specific other, for example, simple topics, I think Leo can talk a little bit more for the 6.
Yes. So the 6, if there is already a such center already in the country, of course, that will be the easiest way to do it. But then the other, because the topic requires a like a certified fact-checking. Sorry, not fact-checking. They said, yeah, no, sorry, I'm mixing up them here. So for the 6 and the safer internet, I'm mixing with the fact checkers. It would be, since both are grant, I would say for both topics, is to work with either start, say nationally with any organization that you might know do this type of work or has been working on either say disinformation or safer internet for kids, and then move out of your country, for example, through your national contact point, trying to reach out to other organizations in other countries that could be already at this point setting up a consortium. Right? Since we're already in the middle of July, we probably have, what is it, like 7 weeks or 8 weeks maybe for the deadline. I would say most of the consortia that will submit something are already formed. I mean, there's obviously, I'm sure we have all seen proposals that have been, let's say, put in place and built and might have even been successful within shorter time. But let's say the vast majority at this point are already there. Here through DEP for All, we have a B2Match platform that you can say register, announce your interest, and look for other organizations that are interested. And then another way is again through your national contact point.
Okay, so there is Christina who raised her hand. So I ask Christina, hi, just please ask your question.
Christina is centrally muted, or can she?
No, at the moment I unmuted her.
No,
Okay,
no,
Christina.
it's wrong. No, thank you.
Oh, okay. No worry. What I can see, there is no more question at the moment.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then everything is left is let's say the short wrap up and farewell. So thank you very much for joining us today, first of all. Although it was short, but we hope the session was useful and interesting. As promised, all the materials will be forwarded to you, will be shared with you, and the recordings also will be made available. So feel free to share it with your colleagues who couldn't attend live, and so on and so on. As I mentioned, if you have more detailed questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your national contact point. We are here to support you, and there are NCPs in all the countries to support you. Don't forget to save the dates for other upcoming sessions, but we don't have dates yet, unfortunately. But since this is the middle of July already, we don't want to torture you with training after training, so we now stop for a period of time. But we have other DEP trainings planned, both about cybersecurity as a specific objective, as well as the detailed proposal writing and project management process, which I think can be very, very interesting. But they will most likely happen in September, so stay tuned. But probably we'll not have the opportunity to organize them earlier, but we will try our best. So we would look forward to seeing you again. Until then, best of luck with your work and project ideas. And we wish you a wonderful summer to everyone. So thank you very much and take care and goodbye to everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Thanks, Leo. Thanks, Oke. Thanks, Agi. So let's have a wonderful summer and then see each other next. Okay, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.